Imagine a towering mountain of debt, growing taller and heavier with each passing year, threatening to overshadow the nation's future. The U.S. national debt's unprecedented growth has a significant impact on societal well-being, fiscal health, and economic stability. This impending financial burden is not merely a numerical value on a balance sheet, it is a multifaceted network of obstacles that has the potential to reshape the nation's economic landscape for decades to come. The consequences of the increasing debt are far-reaching, ranging from the potential stifling of economic development and inflation to the strain on future generations through increased taxes and the impact on national security. It is imperative that policymakers comprehend the multifarious consequences of this escalating crisis. The urgency of strategic solutions to protect the nation's future is underscored by this investigation, which reveals the impact of the growing American debt on a variety of factors, including fiscal policy and global economic influence. 1. Growth and economic stability. The level of national debt has a substantial impact on the stability and development of the American economy. As debt levels increase, a greater proportion of government revenue must be allocated to debt servicing, specifically interest payments. This redirection of funds has the potential to stifle investment in critical sectors, including infrastructure, education, and healthcare. For example, in fiscal year 2023, approximately 8.4% of federal expenditure was allocated to interest on the national debt, which diverted resources that could have been used to enhance public services and stimulate economic growth. Economic innovation and responsiveness may also be impaired by elevated debt levels. The government's capacity to implement fiscal policies that could otherwise support economic expansion during recessions is diminished when a significant portion of its revenue is allocated to debt servicing. The Congressional Budget Office (CBO) anticipates that the subsequent rise in interest rates could further impede economic development if debt continues to increase. This is due to the fact that higher interest rates increase the cost of borrowing for both businesses and consumers, which can lead to a decrease in investment and expenditure. Consequently, the relationship between economic growth and debt levels is of the utmost importance, as persistently high debt levels can result in slowed economic development and diminished long-term prosperity. 2. Fiscal constraints and interest payments. The federal budget is significantly burdened by interest payments on the national debt. These payments increase in tandem with the debt, which may restrict the government's ability to handle other critical programs and services. The United States spent more than $600 billion on interest payments alone in 2023, a figure that is anticipated to increase substantially if debt levels continue to rise. This increasing interest expenditure may threaten to stifle funding for critical sectors, including defense, healthcare, and social security. For instance, a substantial portion of the federal budget that could be allocated to infrastructure enhancements or research and development is instead allocated to debt servicing. This situation generates a paradox in which the government is compelled to balance its budgetary obligations between imminent debt obligations and long-term investments that are indispensable for future growth. Ultimately, the nation's competitiveness and quality of life can be undermined by the inability to invest adequately in critical areas, which can result in cascading effects on the economy, including diminished infrastructure quality and slowed technological advancement. 3. Monetary policy and inflation. Economic stability is significantly influenced by the correlation between inflation and national debt. If the government chooses to print money in order to manage its debt, inflationary pressures may result. The purchasing power of money is diminished by inflation, which affects the ability of consumers to purchase products and services. This is especially problematic for lower-income households, as they are more susceptible to price increases due to the fact that they allocate a greater portion of their income to essential items. Furthermore, the Federal Reserve's monetary policy may be complicated by elevated debt levels. The central bank may need to increase interest rates in order to attract investors to government bonds, which can have a cooling effect on the economy. The potential outcome of increased interest rates is a reduction in consumer expenditure and business investment, which could result in a slower pace of economic growth. In addition, the Federal Reserve is tasked with the challenging task of maintaining a delicate equilibrium between the support of economic development and the management of inflation, which is further complicated by the increasing debt. The interplay between fiscal policy and monetary policy is intricate, and the attainment of macroeconomic stability can be exacerbated by elevated debt levels. 4. Future generational burden. The long-term challenge of an expanding national debt will have an impact on future generations in addition to being an immediate concern. High debt levels suggest that future taxpayers will be obligated to repay the principal and interest, which may result in increased taxes and reduced public services at their expense. This intergenerational transfer of debt raises ethical and economic concerns regarding the equity of current fiscal policies. The potential consequences for future generations are significant. For instance, junior generations may suffer from a reduced standard of living and fewer economic opportunities if current debt levels result in increased taxes or reduced benefits in the future. The capacity of future policymakers to address new challenges and invest in areas that are essential for long-term prosperity, such as education and technological innovation, may also be restricted by the increasing debt. The societal implications of this encumbrance are substantial, as the decisions made today may compromise the quality of life and economic opportunities for future generations. 5. National security consequences. Another area that is indirectly impacted by the increasing national debt is national security. The availability of funding for defense and security measures may be reduced as a greater portion of the federal budget is allocated to debt service. The nation's capacity to invest in advanced technology responds effectively to emergent threats and maintains military readiness may be impacted by this reduction in available resources. For example, the military may encounter difficulties in sustaining its technological edge and operational capabilities if defense budgets are restricted by debt servicing costs. Furthermore, the country's geopolitical position may be weakened by economic instability that arises from elevated debt levels, which can impact its capacity to safeguard national interests and exert influence on global affairs. The significance of managing debt levels to guarantee a robust and competent defense posture is emphasized by the interplay between economic health and national security. 6. Global economic influence. The global economic dynamics are influenced by the impact of the increasing American debt, which extends beyond domestic borders. The United States is a critical player in the global economy, and its fiscal policies and debt levels can have a significant impact on financial stability and international markets. Global investor confidence may fluctuate as a result of concerns regarding the U.S. government's capacity to manage its debt, which can impact international trade and currency values. Additionally, countries that possess substantial quantities of U.S. debt may experience economic consequences in the event that the value of U.S. assets decreases. For instance, a decrease in investor confidence in U.S. debt could result in a sell-off of government bonds, which could potentially contribute to an increase in interest rates and have an impact on global financial markets. The significance of sustaining fiscal discipline to ensure international economic stability is underscored by the interconnectedness of the global economy, which means that U.S. fiscal policies and debt levels can have far-reaching effects. 7. Possibility of debt crisis. The risk of a potential debt crisis in which the government may be unable to fulfill its financial obligations is heightened by the growing American debt. The United States has historically maintained a strong credit rating. However, persistently high levels of debt can erode investor confidence and result in increased borrowing costs. A rise in interest rates could result from a downgrade of the U.S. credit rating, which could make it more costly for the government to borrow. This could potentially lead to a vicious cycle of increasing costs and debt. The broader economy could be significantly impacted by such a crisis. The quality of life and economic growth could be influenced by a debt crisis, which could lead to reduced access to credit, higher taxes, and cuts to essential services. The significance of instituting sustainable fiscal policies and managing debt levels to prevent severe economic disruptions is underscored by the potential for a debt crisis. In conclusion, the escalating American debt poses a variety of challenges that impact economic stability, fiscal constraints, inflation, future generations, national security, global economic influence, and the risk of a debt crisis. A comprehensive fiscal policy that balances long-term sustainability with immediate requirements is necessary to address these issues. To guarantee a stable and prosperous future for the nation and its citizens, it is imperative to implement strategic investments and effective debt management programs. Prudent fiscal stewardship and long-term planning are indispensable as the United States faces the challenges of increasing debt. Let us know in the comments what you think about the impact of increasing American debt on our future, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more captivating content on our YouTube channel.